It's been a very long road for Microsoft and Activision to get this deal done. Announced in January of 2022, and now we are in July of 2023. The case is still going, but it seems like we are finally at the apex of this deal, and this week it will go one way or another. Today I will be talking about the major points of this entire deal, from all the events from last year to right now. This may be a long video when I am done, but after watching this you will understand what has been going on and why I think Microsoft is in the driver's seat to close this deal very soon. If you are viewing this today, please take the time to hit the like button and follow if you enjoyed the content. I think this case is a slam dunk for Microsoft. Despite me being an expert, I tried to really see what the FTC had for this case and if there really is a truth to the notion that there was harm with this merger. I listened to all 5 days of testimony. I have to tell you the truth. I thought the FTC would have done a ton of homework and fully understood how the gaming industry works and the practices of these companies. It turns out, they absolutely did not do that. That is the main reason they looked like complete idiots in the courtroom. It also doesn't make them look credible when they seem to be hired by Sony to represent them. We all know that that is impossible to really happen, but if everything they do and say is to help Sony, then you basically are there working for Sony. Everything that they had to show had holes poked in it. Day one was the day I asked myself if this case is even real. Is this going to be a show? I am sure these lawyers for the FTC are highly intelligent people who passed the bar exam and are supposed to be professionals. So why make yourselves look like they shouldn't be lawyers? The next days after that made things worse and worse for them. I will get into my view on the people who were called to the stand later. Judge Corley was skeptical from the start and seemed to me like she did her homework on the gaming industry and knew things that the FTC thought she didn't know. That was shown many times as she shut them down with redirected questions about something they were saying. Here are the main points of the case and my thoughts on how it went for the FTC. Let's look at each one. Cloud gaming as a delivery method. The FTC was hell-bent on showing that the cloud is a separate market, meaning it is a section of Xbox business that has a SKU, like the Series S, Series X and Game Pass. They were unable to prove this. During their presentation they could not figure out how to separate cloud from everything else. Now, we all know that cloud is an extension of the consoles and Game Pass. It is not a separate thing. You can't use cloud if you are not subscribed to Game Pass. This is a simple thing that the FTC had to find out. Sarah Bond killed that in her testimony. So easy to defeat. Sarah Bond even explained that they had an idea to create a cloud-based option with the Project Keystone device that we saw last year on Phil Spencer's shelf. They scrapped those plans, so it never happened. Can it happen in the future? Yes, but right now it is not a thing. The general consensus about cloud gaming is people use it to test games out. The option to download a game while you are playing cloud always shows up on screen after playing for a while. You do not get the same fidelity you get if you download the game on Game Pass or purchase it on console. Judge Corley continued to say that she can't see how this is a separate SKU. They were never able to come up with a reason. The other side of the cloud argument they brought during closing of the hearing for the FTC is that Microsoft is picking the winners and losers of the cloud gaming industry. I really find it laughable that they bring this up after what had been said by Microsoft and the judge herself. They claimed that a 10-year deal was not offered to Amazon and Google. They may have a small point with Amazon, but I don't think Amazon made it a point to have a deal. I am sure it would have been granted if the FTC demanded it. Let's not even talk about the failed Google Stadia. Why the hell would they offer any deal to a failed gaming division of Google? They continue to argue that these 10-year deals don't have any evidence that they are legit and or Microsoft will not follow through with them. Judge Corley made it clear that Nvidia sat in her courtroom and said they liked the deal. They almost tried to say Nvidia took the deal to help Microsoft. Unbelievable choice of words in court. They then said they hope Nvidia can survive in the future. A company like Nvidia, who is a dominant player in the GPU market and the AI market, is going to die because of a 10-year deal for video games. What a joke of an argument. They then tried to argue that Microsoft didn't have any kind of guideline for the case to show what the 10-year deal brings to the streaming services. Judge Corley did note this, but it was quickly destroyed by the Microsoft lawyer. She said in the video game industry that type of thing isn't necessarily calculated because of so many factors such as games not being purchased or other games can be popular. The success of the game is pushed by the players. These games still have to be purchased at full price to be streamed on GeForce Now or any other streaming service. Once again, a sliver of hope for the FTC was battered away. In conclusion, this one is a huge L for the FTC. The next point was, the market in this case is only for United States and not global. Next, the FTC was on a mission to prove that the market for this case is only in the United States. Now looking at it from an objective view, you could make this case, or at least try to, because both companies are American companies trying to do a vertical merger. Also, this was a United States court and the FTC are one of two trade regulatory bodies in the US. The other being the DOJ. They tried to use the fact, because the market in US is about 53% to 47% for Sony, that this deal would destroy Sony and they would be out of business. They failed to do their homework here again. Two things here that was impossible to hide: the fact that Nintendo is also in the US market and also the global market at that. Nintendo currently holds a 44% market share in the US at the time of this video. Sony is at 33% and Xbox at 21%. Nintendo and Sony are based in Japan. PlayStation may be based in California now, but Sony the company is still a Japanese company. The other thing that the FTC failed to realize is the gaming is global. Every business decision made by Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo is global. Then the thing that continues to backfire on the FTC. Game Pass, PS Plus, and even Nintendo's online service, which has 32 million subscribers. You can't contain online services and even the cloud with country borders. Technically, that is not how it works. It's the same reason you can change your console to New Zealand time and play games early in the western side of the globe. For this one, FTC has talking points, but it will not get them anywhere. Next is foreclosure accusations against Microsoft. This topic runs deep, so many angles and things to discuss. The FTC for 5 days hinged their case on hypothetical ideas to say this is going to happen. The FTC basically took what Sony does now and tried to tell Judge Corley that Xbox is going to do it to Sony if they are allowed to purchase ABK. I want you to read into what I just said. Doesn't it sound like fear from Jim Ryan? He is so scared that Microsoft will give them back the same treatment that they have been giving to Xbox all these years. Despite it being known that Phil Spencer emailed Jim Ryan to tell him they intended to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation. Jim Ryan was okay with the talk at first and even proceeded to have a conversation with a former boss, telling him that Sony will be okay and they have some things in the pipeline. He would rather Xbox and Activision not to merge, but it's okay because Microsoft is doing this for other reasons and not as an exclusive play. Jim Ryan then decided he was not happy with the deal anymore. He then emailed Phil Spencer in August of last year and demanded Xbox allow all ZeniMax games to be on PlayStation as well as all Activision games. If they do that, then he will sign the 10-year deal. Jim Ryan actually played that like he was in some kind of control of the situation. Amazing to me. Now, the FTC's crusade to limit the market doesn't stop with geography. They wanted the court to not count Nintendo and PC gaming as a gaming option for consumers. This was a strategic move by the FTC, which had the potential to do two things: keep things between Sony and Microsoft only, and also to discredit the Xbox 10-year deals, but, just like everything else before it, they failed to make their case. Their witness, Professor Lee, was tasked with creating data models to show how Microsoft would likely foreclose Call of Duty and other games from Sony after the deal closes. Once again, his whole testimony was just a long line of BS that the FTC was bringing forth. He was quickly discredited because Professor Lee used a variable for his data that he made up. He decided himself based off a possible per person hypothetical value per customer. He came up with 20% of possible market change from Sony to Microsoft. He also decided that he would use data from the PS4 and the Xbox One, stating that he had to use that data because there isn't enough data for the use of current-gen consoles. Professor Lee tried to create numbers that would aid Sony. He failed big time trying to use made-up data in court. Microsoft had an economist just like Professor Lee. I forget her name, but she did an excellent job of bringing actual data. Real-world factual data. The judge seemed to learn a whole lot after her testimony. She had the PC community and the Nintendo community in her numbers and showed the true and actual reality of the gaming industry. She also had a very important stat. 62% of PlayStation players do not even play Call of Duty. The FTC was all over the place at every turn. Phil Spencer took the stand on day 2, and during his testimony the judge was so fed up with the bad questioning from the FTC that she turned to Phil Spencer and asked him if he promised to put Call of Duty on PlayStation and on future PlayStation iterations. Phil then raised his hand in court, under oath, and said he intends to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation. Satya Nadella also said the same thing on day 3, under oath. That wasn't the only angle going on. The FTC also was saying that Activision should remain independent because they know that Activision will take advantage of putting Call of Duty on cloud services in the future and doesn't need Microsoft to do so. Before the hearing, Activision publicly stated that they are not interested in cloud gaming or even putting their game on Game Pass. Jim Ryan even helped Microsoft by saying under oath that Bobby Kotick would never put his games on a subscription service, so Jim Ryan did not bother to ask him to place the game on PS Plus. We all know that was a lie, because Jim Ryan doesn't believe in placing new games on their service. It was such a mess listening to this case. Watching the FTC scramble because of testimony from witness called in from Microsoft and their own. In this section the FTC lost badly. Other things that I took away from this hearing. This case was somewhat hard to listen to due to the lack of knowledge in the courtroom from both sides, but Judge Corley seemed to know a lot more than the FTC thought she would. Maybe due to the fact that her son works for Microsoft, she may have asked him a few things. She spent a lot of time interrupting the FTC lawyers during the hearing because they never were able to be clear about what they were saying. Everything seemed to be about Sony and not the consumers. In the closing arguments she asked the FTC would we even be here if Sony had signed the deal. This was a clever attempt to see if the FTC had a true vision for consumers. The answer was all over the place. To him they would still be there because of cloud concerns. Fair enough, but I think they wouldn't be there. Judge Corley pointed out during the closing arguments about how Sony does the same thing you are accusing Microsoft of doing in the future. The killer statement was her saying this deal would make Sony compete better by doing what Xbox is doing with Day and Date. The funny thing about that, the PlayStation players do not want that to happen. They make fun of Game Pass and think it's welfare pass. Jim Ryan knows this, and because of that he will never do it because the fans want to pay $70 for every game. The FTC lawyers never even brought that up because that would make Xbox look good. The judge still saw through it. I don't think they were expecting that to happen. Let's talk about other people who were called to the stand. On day 1 Matt Booty was called up and he was grilled pretty hard by the FTC. A lot of people who see this think that because he is being asked a whole bunch of questions that this means he is getting his butt kicked. A very foolish way to look at court proceedings. Matt Booty answered every question truthfully and left zero holes in what he was talking about. They brought an email where he was talking about spending PlayStation out of business. As wild and crazy as that sounds, do any of you think Sony hasn't been trying to put Xbox out of business for the last 20 years? I know some of the reason Xbox fell behind is because of Microsoft. In the beginning Microsoft did not put a lot of resources behind Xbox. It allowed Sony to take this huge lead by doing the dirty things that they were doing. Despite what I just said, Sony doesn't play nice. Now that Xbox had the funding and the backing of Microsoft, Matt Booty was ready to go after their necks. That is the basis of this email. It's business talk. Matt Booty also was called out on another email where he was very candid about Nvidia and taking games off of GeForce Now. This is a good try by the FTC, but that email was before the ABK deal and had to do with Nvidia putting games on their service without permission from Xbox. He did a pretty good job in being truthful. Next on the same day we had Pete Hines take the stand. Now Pete Hines has a mind of his own. Just because Microsoft bought ZeniMax doesn't mean he doesn't have his own views. He seems like the kind of guy that will share that. Of course, he will never have the final say with anything. I found it really awkward at times when he was speaking, specifically when he was talking about why it's better to work on one system rather than multiple. He was trying to say it's better for them to make games only for Xbox to keep things in line and shorten the release of the game. He then went on to say that Starfield would not be coming out in 2 months if they had to also make a PS5 version. The very funny sound of this view was also co-signed by Jim Ryan in his testimony when he said the exact same thing about putting games on Xbox. We all know the truth is we want to have games on our system, so you choose to play here. What they said in court is not wrong, but seems to me like a bit of wool over the eyes. Now we get to Bobby Kotick, who was on the stand on day 3. Honestly, he seemed like he was playing both sides, but, let's be real, he is in court under oath. He is to tell the truth about it all, even if it hurts Microsoft and this deal. After listening to him, it really didn't help both sides, and that is a win for Microsoft in my book. He proceeded to co-sign Jim Ryan's views on Game Pass that publishers hated it, but also in that same moment killed the FTC's argument that he would put his games on cloud if this deal didn't happen. He also added that this deal would be the only way Activision games ended up on Game Pass or PS Plus. He doesn't believe in those services. He also showed regret for not working harder to get Call of Duty on Nintendo. I don't believe that statement though. I don't think he cares about downgrading the game to run on Nintendo. You can say that Call of Duty on mobile is downgraded, but when the money is powerful on mobile, you don't care about those things. I left some people out who were irrelevant to the case in my opinion. The bottom line here is this: the FTC lost badly. I can't believe the lack of knowledge they came to court with. I almost want to call this case a dog and pony show. Pun almost intended. Me wanting Microsoft to win is another thing, but I expected this to be a serious fight because of the time that the FTC had to build this thing up from December of last year. They did absolutely nothing. So, at the time of this recording, it is July 4th, 2023, and it's Independence Day in the United States. My thinking is that tomorrow there will be a decision made by the judge. In a week from that, which will be July 12th, her written decision will be unsealed. I fully expect this preliminary injunction to not be granted. The FTC did a really poor job and they don't deserve to win. It's as simple as that. Thanks for watching this video, and do take the time to like the video and follow the channel. I am still in the process of putting together resources to improve things. I hope to have a better video each time. My next video will most likely be about the judge's ruling and what happens next. So keep your eye out for when that happens. Hope everybody has a great 4th of July today and be safe. See you in the next one.